What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Anime Princess, and today we're going to go over a deep dive for my Spark character. Pulling up my stats page, we have a total DPS of 6.5 mil. This is the absolute bare minimum when we are hitting an enemy once and the projectiles never come back. To calculate the maximum DPS, we have to factor in our skill effect duration, which will allow us to hit 4.8 times. Technically, we could push this up to 5 with tattoos, although I think it's unrealistic to ever hit the maximum if there's no margin in there. So I'm perfectly happy to round 4.8 down to 4 and just assume, like, even if I pushed it higher, I'm never hitting more than 4 anyways. So we multiply it by 4. That is a nice 28 million maximum DPS. And this is going to happen in those smaller maps. You're going to hit higher multiples. As for the defenses, I'd say the weakness is the Fizz max hit. Something we have to work on. It is week 1, however, so there's always going to be stuff to improve. We have pretty good EHP pool thanks to the Aegis. LE damage is generally fine. We're not Chaos Res capped, and this might be an issue since we are cutting our HP pool in half with Petrified Blood. However, it's felt comfortable enough so far. We do have Lifesteal over Leech, in fact, with the Petrified Blood. We have quite a bit of life regen and energy shield regen. You do see it's negative, but this is accounting for like the 1 second of frost shield debuff. It's actually quite high. Yeah, that's the stat page. Spell block cap, a few off cap for attack block. Although if I use divines on my gear, I'll be at basically attack block cap. So I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, overall, that's the stat page. Going over the amount invested, let's pull that up. I've broken down into 2 separate parts. The first one is very easily attainable gear, and the second part at the bottom simply is just me using somewhat niche items that actually might not be available once this video comes up. And those purely add damage. So, we've broken it down to help make this easier for everybody. The baseline cost is 67 divs at the moment. I did spend quite a bit less because, as you guys probably know, prices increase over the course of the league, and prices in the first few days have already drastically changed. So we can go over this real quick. The biggest cost is a 10 div amulet, the new replica Dragon Fang for +3 to the Spark skill gem. This is actually a cheaper alternative to Ashes. Ashes is like 25 div, so that's why I'm using this. I bought Awakened Spell Echo. It's 10 div. It's a skill gem. You don't need to upgrade this. It's just a little bit more damage. The Perfect Wand Craft, crafting guide on the channel, cost me around 10 div. And then there's the DPS Body Armor, another crafting guide on the channel, approximately 8 div, I'd say. The next most expensive is just a rare pair of gloves and boots. I'd assume these are around 6 div total. Again, crafting guide for the gloves on the channel. Aegis Aurora 4, Bottled Faith 4, the +3 Spark Enchant Helmet 4. I have an attack block Watcher's Eye, just with 1 extra damage mod. There's a ton of different damage mods. If you want to know all the different options, I do have a video on my channel. It's not in the Spark playlist because I feel like Watcher's Eye is super niche, but you can find it. I'd go for attack block with 1 extra damage mod, around 3 div. Divergent Inspirations 3, Anomalous Arrogance is 2, and that brings the total up to 67 div. I'm not counting anything that's cheaper than 2 divs because it's going to take forever. As for the really niche stuff that I'm using that might not be replicatable, I'm using Unwavering Crusade, Forbidden Flame and Flesh. This is a really huge damage multiplier. It's around 30 div right now, but the price wildly fluctuates. It could be more, it could be less. I'm using the Explode Flask, Oriath's N, 10 div. I just have a rare crit multi-jewel. It's around 10 div. And the tattoo tech we're using involves Blue Nightmare, which is a Chayula drop. This is 4 div. So the running total for the whole package is 121 div, although I'd say the last 4 items are, you can easily cut them out. Before we go into the POB, let's take a look at my character in game. We're level 95. I have a similar amount of strength and int, and we have enough dex to use everything. The reason why you want to have similar amounts of strength and int is, as Inquisitor, it takes the lowest value of these two and it adds it on to our crit chance. And for this dex, this actually is too low to use all my gear, but Replica Dragon Fang reduces the attribute requirement. So this is like the actual minimum with this item. The way we make the int and strength equal is we use Honored Tattoo of the Tuatara. You can use it either on strength or on int, depending which one's higher, to transform the +10 node into +4 for all attributes. So that was how I was able to balance it out and squeeze in the most crit possible. As for my gear, we have shield charge, faster attacks, and sniper's mark in here just because I needed to fit it somewhere. The main way we go around the maps is with shield charge. This is faster than flame dash. In the helmet, it is still the trigger helmet with tornado, sigil of power, frost shield, life tap. So whenever I'm fighting something that is scary or that I need to stop and just cast, we'll just press focus. We get a huge damage amp. In the Aegis Aurora, which is reskinned to look like a rare shield, I have Steel Skin, Arcane Surge, Flame Dash. So when I press Flame Dash, I get the Arcane Surge buff, which gives me cast speed and mana regen. And Steel Skin is simply on left click, so it's going to proc every few seconds on and off. Steel Skin is one option we could use. Molten Shell cast with damage taken is the other. The advantage of Steel Skin is it will remove bleeding effects every time it procs, and I don't have a way to take off bleed. However, Molten Shell cast with damage taken would help protect you against bigger incoming hits. So it's probably a slightly better defensive option. This is assuming you do have baseline armor above 25,000. Although if you're playing this build, you should have at least that anyways. So yeah, Molten Shell is a good option. But I'm using this strictly for the bleeds. It's also somewhat comparable defensively. The body armor, I have Spark, increased crit damage, Divergent Inspiration, Awaken Added Lightning, Awaken Spell Echo, Pinpoint Support, and I do not think I would change any of this. Potentially, if you're doing something like Sanctum where you're moving around a lot, you could drop Pinpoint. You probably want a white socket here, slot in Hypothermia, because Pinpoint, the way it works is you get these intensity charges, and when you're on one charge, you're doing actually quite a bit less damage than if you had Hypothermia, but when you're on 4 charges, you're doing a lot more. So for most mapping, you know, if you're moving around, like whenever you move, you lose intensity. If you're moving, you're not really worried about your damage because you're killing everything real fast. And when you're standing still, because you're planted and you're hitting something really hard. So for most cases, I do like Pinpoint. However, you know, it may not be best in slot for every situation. In the gloves, we have the auras, Enlighten matched with Tempest Shield, Zealotry, and Determination. And in the boots, I have Anomalous Blood and Sand for a little bit extra prod speed. We have Herald of Ice, you know, just for the explosions, it looks great. And we are using Petrified Blood with Anomalous Arrogance to go on to low life, because we are low life now. That is the gem setup. Let's hop into POB for the passive tree, because here I can compare and contrast 2 separate ones a little more easily. The one we're looking at right now is the tree I currently have, and this includes all that optional tech, and it includes the Blue Nightmare in order to take advantage of tattoos. So here we're sitting at 6.5 mil, and we do have higher EHP pool because using this tech, I'm able to still cap my spell block, but I'm able to path and grab some attack block as well. Whereas on this baseline tree, this was before I did the swap, we're not quite attack block capped, and I'm using a lot of points to get spell block over here and up here. So this would be a good baseline tree to use, but if you truly want to min max, let's go over this tattoo technology. So we are using the Blue Nightmare, which draws from Chayula, and if this is expensive, you could use a Blue Dream and you use the Blessing of Chayula to upgrade it to the Blue Nightmare. So you could either buy this straight up or you could upgrade a Blue Dream yourself depending on the price points. And this gives us 10% lightning damage as extra chaos damage, which is a decent chunk of damage. But the main point of this is when we use these tattoos to add lightning res on the int nodes, it also gives us 4% spell block. So we're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to give us 28% spell block. So we're getting all the spell block through these travel nodes that we would be spec'd into anyways. I'm able to save these points and save these points. Because of this, we can spec down, grab a dual node, grab some attack block, grab some more attack block in the mastery, and in wavering stance, which lets us be immune to stuns. This is a pretty neat tech. It's very valuable over here. And by not passing through here, we are able to get a free one of these special honored tattoos because it's just right on the line. So I chose to go with the plus 30 dex changed into you gain onslaught on hit. This allowed me to free up a flask slot, which allowed me to use the explode flask. That's kind of fun. As for the rest of this tree, so far as tattoos go, I have projectile speed here and here. The two dex nodes we're converting to proj speed. It's pretty high value. And the rest is simply converting int, because I had a little bit too much int, into +4 stats. This helps recoup the dex we lost, and it helps add more strength so that we can balance our crit chance. So this is the passive tree. Another alternative tech I've seen used is you can spec through here. Obviously, you would not do the blue nightmare, then you'd use the red nightmare and you'd get some attack block from all this strength. I'm not sure if that's better than what we're doing up here, but that is an option. And you could also spec out here to grab even more. And that way you'd get the +1 to intelligence skill gems. I think getting onslaught on hit is better than +1, although if you were going, I guess if you went down here, I'd still recommend going onslaught on hit just to get that extra flask slot. And if you don't want to spend 10 div on the Orieth's end, another very good flask would be the Basalt Flask, which gives us 20% more armor. Armor is really good with Aegis. Again, fizz hits is sort of a weakness. So, simply getting a magic Basalt Flask would be perfect. Let's pop into the config now. For bandits, we have killed all because once I swapped over to Pain Attunement, Petrified Blood, I needed the extra pathing. I'm using Brian King for Cannot Be Frozen. I'm using Soul of Yugal for the Reflect Immunity, as well as the Curse Reduction. If you are doing Overleech tech, you will not naturally be on low life, so you'll need to check that you're always on low life. Realistically, you will always, because you cannot recover past the 50% naturally. We use Frenzy charges from the Body Armor craft, use Endurance charges from Enduring Composure Small Cluster. We have Onslaught. I'm getting it now from the passive tree. Adrenaline is from Death Rush. This doesn't work on bosses, so if you are doing bosses, you want to do a ring swap. I talk about that in the day 3 video. We are on Consecrated Ground from our Ascendancy. The enemy is unnerved because that is my implicit on the glove. The enemy is on Consecrated Ground, since when you have Zealotry support, you are putting them on Consecrated Ground. Also, if you're standing close to them, the Bottle of Faith puts them on Consecrated Ground. Frost Shield, you can put stage 4 because you get up to stage 4 really easily. Intensity, stage 4 as well. For Sigil of Power, we have 99 mana cost per second. I suppose you can put this a little bit higher. I just put it at stage 1 to be conservative. And if you're using Anomalous, Blood and Sand, put on Sand Stance for that extra proj speed. I always like to set it to Guardian Pinnacle Boss. I think that's all of the config. I do have a custom modifier in here because the POB doesn't register Unwavering Stance. So this is simply putting in the 3 auras that we're going to have 100% uptime with on Spark. So if we simply cut this out, this is the damage without the Forbidden Flame and Flesh. So you can see we go from 4.5 to 6.5. What is that, like a 40% damage boost? I don't know. Yeah, it's quite a lot. For 2 jewel sockets, I think this is unrivaled for damage. If you want other options for Forbidden Flame and Flesh, I talk about it in the League Start guide, and a lot of those options have defensive properties as well. So you can't really measure this one for one with, say, Conviction of Power, which also gives you 4 endurance charges. However, just do note, this is an insane amount of damage. I suppose the other stuff to note about this tree would be we're not crit capped. That's unfortunate. I still have to work on that. Ideally, obviously, we want to be 100% crit capped. As for where we could go, I still have 5 more levels. 5 more is enough to go to Lethe Shade, which would let us do Self Chill. So I could technically level to 100, remove nothing from the tree and do Self Chill. This is something I may want to do. I really like Self Chill. Well, we would have to go Call of the Void with the other Self Chill ring. We need to recraft the weapon. I guess another downside for me of going Self Chill would be I need to use Call of the Void. However, Call of the Brotherhood is a lot more damage than Call of the Void. And this is specifically because of my Forbidden Flame and Flesh, because I'm getting Hatred Aura, so I want to be doing cold damage. So maybe for me, Self Chill makes a little bit less sense because of my Forbidden Flame and Flesh, but we might do it anyways. I don't know. We'll see. As for where I want to take this build from here, I'm not totally sure yet. We may go Self Chill. If you have a Mage Blood, you could definitely slap it on and the build would feel really great. Mage Blood's probably best in slot. I don't know if I necessarily need to. I think the current config feels really good without a Mage Blood. You know, if I 1 to 5 a Mage Blood, sure, we'll use it. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it as it is. I can still tinker around with the rare gear. I'll maybe get a bit more armor, get a bit more Chaos Res. I could aim to get some Fizz taken as Ellie. That would be really nice for the defenses. We need to shore up some more crit. I could do that on large cluster. I could even go for a medium cluster that's crit base. That will give me a lot of crit. There are some options there I'll have to think about. But I think right here we have a pretty solid foundational package. Pretty happy with how it looks here. I'll keep you posted if anything major changes. Hope you enjoyed the deep dive. Had a lot of fun with Spark Inquisitor. We're still going to grind for quite a while. And then we're going to switch into Spark Trickster next, because I do want to touch on that build as well. So look out for that in the future. Expect more Spark Inquisitor content in the meantime. Hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you live on Twitch. Peace out.